All right, baseball fans, welcome back to Ducks on the Pod. After a 2-week hiatus, we are back. I'm your host, Mitch Gatsky. Please follow along with the show at fourlights.fm/ducks/15. This is the 15th episode of the season, and we are at the All-Star break, if you can believe it, already. Big show planned for you today. Before I get started, I want to throw out a big thanks to Nick Clements for representing Ducks on the Pod at the Field of Dreams and Wrigley Field over the weekend. I myself was in Cleveland Saturday night for my visit to Progressive Field, and also a super duper thank you to my host Evan Skilleter, who helped me make that trip happen. But Nick, Evan, thank you very much for your contributions to the show this week. And without further ado, let's get started. So I finally made it down to Progressive Field in Cleveland over the weekend. As I mentioned before, it's really kind of shocking that I haven't been down there for a game before. It's only about 2.5 hours away. I have plenty of friends in the Cleveland area who would go to a game with me. It's a place that I've wanted to go for quite some time, just never ended up going. So finally did. I have to say it made a great first impression on me. I walked in and quickly saw a sign advertising $2 beers. Sign me up, you know. Can't really beat that. It was only Miller Lite, but hey, $2 for 12 ounces is a hell of a deal to find at a Major League stadium. Progressive Field opened as Jacobs Field in 1994 at the beginning of the retro-style ballpark wave. And what set the Jake apart is the look of the exterior. While numerous stadiums have followed in the footsteps of Camden Yards, others have ditched the classic brick look for more of a modern feel supported by steel rather than masonry. Any of these are based at least somewhat on the Jake. Capacity is just a notch above 35,000. Only Tropicana Field holds fewer. I've found that quite interesting. And actually talking to some of the Indians fans at the game, they have taken away a lot of the seats over there in right field in the upper deck sections. They wanted to put some suites up there, I guess. Apparently that didn't work out so well, so now there's just kind of garage structures up there to make it look like the ballpark is more full. But it looks a bit weird when you walk in. I actually asked Evan, what's going on in right field over there? It just doesn't look good. It's kind of an eyesore. Saturday's game was announced as a sellout. The official attendance ended up being 34,726, and the place was packed, which was nice to see since Cleveland has dealt with notoriously low attendance figures for years now. The Tribe hosted an extra inning World Series Game 7 last fall, so I'm really confused why it is that Cleveland sits 26th in Major League Baseball in average home game attendance. It's not from a lack of trying on the Indians' part. There was a live band and a DJ playing inside the stadium before the game started. That in addition to the music that was, of course, being played throughout the loudspeakers. I mentioned $2 beers before first pitch, which seemed like a semi-regular thing. People weren't going crazy, so I'm assuming they're at least a little bit accustomed to that. I know they have dollar dog nights quite frequently throughout the summer. Saturday night was also Andrew Miller jersey night. Unfortunately, we did not arrive in time, so I did not get one of those. But the point is there are a lot of promotions and things going on besides the game that the Indians are trying to bring to their ballpark to get people in there. And it really is a shame because it shouldn't take all of that to attract people to come see what is a damn good ball club. It felt so much smaller in person than it looks on TV, Progressive Field does. I think it's the big wall and left that makes it seem that way. The upper decks are built more straight up than they are back, and I'm used to Comerica Park where a walk from the top row to the concourse is about 1.5 miles long. That is not the case in Cleveland. So what about my experience there? We sat in right field right next to the bullpens, which are cool because they're so out in the open and you can really watch guys warm up and see the movement on their pitches. That's the best thing to me is the bullpens are not isolated. They're kind of surrounded by fans, and you can really get a good look at these guys. I was real hungry and in need of a local's suggestion. Evan to the rescue, as he recommended. We hit this stand called Melt, which makes gourmet grilled cheese. I wanted the chorizo. They were out. My heart sank, but the pulled pork was a great plan B. I highly recommend checking out Melt for some delicious grilled cheese sandwiches if you're ever at Progressive Field. A few innings went by. I got hungry again. Hot dogs this time. They've got slider dogs there, which are just what they sound like, mini hot dogs. You can get onions, chili, cheese, bacon on them. I went with the standard plain hot dogs, no ketchup, no mustard. I'm a traditionalist. By far, my least favorite part of the night was the totally random and absolutely unnecessary OHIO chant, followed by, of course, Hang On Sloopy, a song that has nothing to do with the state or the school, but the Buckeyes have managed to make it their own anyway. Really confused why this was a part of the program there. I understand a lot of the fans there are also Ohio State fans, but it just seems like a bit of brainwashing that the entire state can only root for one college team. Always kind of rubbed me the wrong way because there are so many other colleges in the state of Ohio, but for whatever reason, the Buckeyes are the end-all be-all. That's fine, but just keep it away from baseball. I could have really used that. Back to baseball, we saw a great game. Verlander and Clevenger went relatively deep and limited the base runners throughout their outings. That was very important because Cleveland's got that bum with the drum out in left field, hammering away whenever the home team has a runner in scoring position. It gets very annoying. I shouldn't call him a bum. He's probably a very nice guy, but it just drives me nuts on TV. In person, I actually hardly ever noticed. There was a good atmosphere that night. I think it was mostly just because the Tribe was beating up on the rival Tigers, but I do hope to see more of this later in the summer and into the fall as the Tribe make another run at the playoffs. It's important to have some sort of an atmosphere at your ballpark, or else you just end up being one of those places where none of the free agents want to come. Nobody wants to play in front of an empty stadium that makes no noise. It really is puzzling why this team is so good, and they were last year, but still, we're more than halfway into the season, and still the Indians are really struggling to draw. I don't know what the issue is. I wish I did, because if it were me living in the Cleveland area, I would be going to a lot more games than I am living here in the Detroit area, just because the Tigers at this point are very hard to watch. I will not get into it. So the game ends, and Evan and I head out to meet Damian Bowman, producer of this show and owner of the Four Lights Network that hosts us here at Ducks on the Pod. We figured we'd take a walk and, try to just find a cab. Ubers would be very expensive at that point. We're trying to pay the surge pricing. So we're just going to head down toward the bar that Damian said he'd be at. Hopefully we run into a cab and we can hop in and ride that there. Well, didn't see many cabs, and 2 miles later, we finally get to Damian's hangout Hopples, or Hooples, actually. I just saw 1-0, but apparently there were 2. I promise I wasn't that drunk, but Damian gets us a couple of beers, and we're just hanging out, having a good time. We've actually never met the guy, even though we've known him for quite some time. So it was very good to have that face-to-face. Big things coming with the Four Lights Network, and actually some big changes to it that I won't get into here because it's more a Damian's thing, but it does concern us a little bit here at Ducks on the Pod. So it's an exciting time, but very good to meet Damian. He was gracious enough to actually give us a ride back into town because we were quite a bit of ways away from downtown at this point. Apparently there was a better route that we could have taken. I didn't know. We were just walking. And everything ended up being all right. He drops us off back downtown, and we go to the casino. And actually, this was a total audible. Sit down at the blackjack table, put down $40, end up walking away with $75. So it wasn't a bad night. Played for maybe 45 minutes to an hour. It was a good time and a nice little thing to cap off the night unexpectedly to wrap up that experience in downtown Cleveland. Never really been downtown, kind of been to the outskirts of town, just family, friends, and the suburbs and surrounding areas of Cleveland. Never really had the chance to go downtown and see what it was like. It's very nice. I loved Progressive Field. I can't wait to get back there because really it hit me on the way back just how short of a drive it is, because Sunday morning we woke up and Evan and I just kind of hit the road at 10 o'clock and I was home by 2, and that was just kind of us taking our time along the way. So I will definitely be back down to Cleveland, probably not to see the Tigers just because it'd be nice to get away from them for a while. So stay tuned. May have to make another trip down to Progressive Field because it was quite a ballpark. I enjoyed my time. I thank the Indians fans for not making too much fun of a Tigers fan whose team actually fell to last place that night. I appreciate that. And of course, another big, super duper thank you to Evan Skilleter for hosting, showing me the ropes of the stadium and everything. It was great to see you, bud. Can't wait to do it again. Next time we got to get you up to Comerica, though, because I don't believe you've ever been. Anyway, that was my impression of Progressive Field. Love the park. Love the team. Can't understand why people aren't coming out to see them more often. And I just might have to myself. Now, baseball fans, I know it's hard to believe, but we're already at the All-Star break. There are 70 to 76 games left in the regular season, depending on which team you follow. And the trade deadline is less than 3 weeks away. That means it's time for one of my favorite parts of the season, where we divide all 30 Major League Baseball teams into 2 categories, buyers and sellers. I love trade season because everyone can get involved. Everyone can come away feeling like a winner, even if their team is 27 games back, as the San Francisco Giants are currently. First, the clear buyers, division by division, in order of the current standings. I'm going to go through the buyers this week, sellers next week. We'll start out in the AL East. Boston, New York, and Tampa Bay? Yeah, the Rays are 3.5 back, same as the Yanks, and could possibly be looking to add a piece or two for a run at a wild card spot. They're right on the fringe here, and I could easily see them electing to just stand pat, knowing that their core is just beginning to take shape. But still, this has to be exciting for Rays fans who haven't had much to cheer about in quite some time. It's no secret that the Bo Sox need help at the hot corner. The Panda Man is injured once again, and none of the fill-ins have made the job their own. So from Todd Frazier to Martin Prado to Mike Moustakas, whom I'd assume is no longer available now that the Royals have turned it around, there is no shortage of third basemen rumored to be shipping out to Boston. The Sox have the 3rd lowest OPS in baseball at the third base position, so just about anyone would be an upgrade. We've seen Dylan Dave Dombrowski make trade after trade, with winning now almost always being the motivation. He is most certainly not afraid to package his prospects in favor of a player who can provide immediate impact. I'd be shocked if he didn't do something to try and address this gaping hole in the lineup. It's not quite as much of a surprise as the Rays being in the hunt, but the Yankees weren't supposed to be this good either. We have mostly Aaron Judge to thank for that. They've been slipping, though. The last series they won was June 9 through 11 when they swept the O's out of town. They're 8-18 since, with 13 of those losses coming by 3 runs or fewer. And whether it's surrendering early runs and putting the team in a hole, or being unable to avoid the big innings that kill momentum, the starting pitching has not been good enough. Tanaka has had a couple of good outings amongst a slew of terrible ones. He's not been reliable at all this summer. Thankfully, Luis Severino has really blossomed into the top of the rotation guy, or else New York would be looking at a staff full of mediocre arms. I think they'll target a go-to starter to flesh out the rotation for the stretch run. Other than that, I think they're just about set in terms of position players. The AL Central is close, but not really. The Tribe are so good, but they're also pretty inconsistent. Injuries have played a major role in the up and down nature of their season to this point. Kipnis just hit the DL again, this time with a hamstring injury. The good news, though, is all-star Jose Ramirez keeps getting better every day, and his versatility leaves the front office with a lot of options here. I'm not sure what I would go after if I were them. There really aren't any glaring needs in Cleveland, at least from what I can see. And despite leading the Twins by only 2.5 games and the Royals by just 3, it seems the crown is still the Tribe's to lose. Minnesota is minus 60 in run differential. KC is minus 25. The fact that this race is still close seems to be a fluke to me. I expect the Tribe to pull away shortly after the break, and any move that they make would be with an eye on October. The Twins need another starter. Ervin Santana has been a revelation, pitching well above the moderately high bar he's set for himself over a pretty good career. And Jose Barrios is following up his forgettable freshman year with a splendid sophomore season. In both cases, I think it'd be unfair to expect them to keep up such great work. I suggest trying to go pry away Jose Quintana or Sonny Gray. That way you get a number one guy you can hang on to beyond this season, and you don't have to go overpay another starter in the winter to get him to come play up north. Over in Kansas City, GM Dayton Moore has said that his Royals will not be selling off their pending free agents. I wholly disagree with this decision, but I understand it. This core of players will be idolized by Royals fans for decades because they'll never see anything like the run that their team went on in 2015 and 2016. They won't because their front office is going to make the mistake that so many small market teams fall victim to. When you've got guys other teams want that you know you won't be able to re-sign, you've got to unload them and get the best return you can so that you can retool organically. Sure, the buyer's mentality might pay off with one more trip to the postseason just for old time's sake, but at what cost to the Kansas City Royals? The AL West belongs to the Astros. We've known that for quite some time. The only question at this point is, are they too good to let anyone else from the division into the party? The Angels, Rangers, and Mariners are all 3 to 4 games out of the second wildcard spot, but there are plenty of impending meetings with the Astros left on the schedule. LA is 4-6. Texas and Seattle are 3-7 against Houston this season. Whichever team, if any, can figure out how to beat the Astros will announce themselves as favorites for a wild card spot. So how would they go about doing that? Well, the Angels cannot hit. Andrelton Simmons is swinging it like never before. Cameron Maybin has been a huge help with Trout missing so much time. And Yunel Escobar continues to be very solid. But after that, the Halos have gotten terribly below average production from their first and second baseman and DH. While they may have some guys going good, the amount of holes in this lineup makes it very pitchable right now. The Angels look much more like sellers than buyers, despite being right in the thick of the wild card race. And really, same goes for the Mariners, for the opposite reason, though. They hit just fine, but injuries and underperformance in both the rotation and bullpen have bitten this team badly. Just like the Angels lineup, the Mariners' pitching woes seem to be beyond fixing, and I'd be surprised if they were big buyers at the deadline. As far as Texas is concerned, Darvish has been himself. Hamels is back and pitching well enough, even with a strikeout-to-walks ratio that's not so hot. They could opt to reinforce the rotation with a mid-level starter, but I don't see how they can ignore what's going on with their bullpen. In short, it's a dumpster fire. Their relievers have the 6th worst ERA in the game. They've already chased one closer out of town, and I don't see anyone currently on the roster who's going to be able to swoop in and provide the stability they need at the back end. The most obvious candidate is the White Sox' David Robertson. He hasn't had many opportunities, but he's been lights out. I'm sure it would take quite a bit to convince the Southsiders to part ways with such a reliable closer who's also under team control until the end of next year. But I don't think the Rangers can afford not to pay for the arm that they desperately need. We shall see. Let's head over to the National League, home of the haves and the have-nots. The Nationals still need an established closer. You may have heard that before. And once again, it's really the only thing holding them back from being a great team. Now, they can either skate by without one and continue to beat up on the 4 AAA teams they've got in their division, only to hit that October wall once the competition resurfaces, or they can attempt to correct the problem as they did last year and pray that this year's fix is more effective than Mark Melancon was. I put Washington in the same category as the Astros and, to a lesser degree, the Tribe. The division is all but won. Now it's time to focus on the postseason. The NL Central has officially gone off script. The Brewers could use a top-flight starter. Not sure how aggressive they'll be at the deadline because they don't want to jeopardize what is a blindingly bright future by dealing away any potential franchise players. On the other hand, they do have a lot of guys exceeding expectations with plenty of prospects knocking on the door as possible replacements. I think they'll move on a top arm so long as they don't have to sell the farm to do it. As far as the Cubs are concerned, nothing's going to happen. I don't believe. Theo Epstein has said he will not be acquiring any big pieces ahead of July 1. And even if he wanted to, I'm not sure what that trade would be. It's not like the Cubs have holes on the roster. They just need the guys they have to start playing better. There was bound to be a hangover after the most glorious World Series title since 2004. This is becoming a bit more than that, though. The Cubs are 5.5 games back and in real trouble here. There isn't a clear solution, and this may be Joe Maddon's toughest test yet. And we've got 3 teams jockeying for position out west. The Dodgers are running away with this thing now, but the Diamondbacks and Rockies have cooled off considerably over the past month. You can't really put their having fallen behind on their shoulders. The Dodgers have just been unreal. Since May 1, they are 47-17. They've gone from 2 games back to 7.5 up in that time, and everything just seems to be going their way. Everyone could use more pitching, so if they do make a move, I guess it'd be grabbing a guy who could maybe eat some innings, help out in the bullpen. But the much more intriguing buyers in this division are the 2 teams trying to keep pace with the Dodgers. Realistically, neither the D-backs nor the Rockies will be able to catch them. This is now a head-to-head battle for home field advantage in that NL wildcard game. Both teams look pretty set, though. Let's not forget, before the Dodgers went on this tear, Arizona and Colorado were the best stories in baseball. They've still got a good thing going, even if their older brother has reasserted his dominance. Maybe I'm overly superstitious, but I'd be a bit cautious about shaking up either of these teams too much right now. If they do make a move, look for the Rockies to augment their young starting rotation with a veteran who can help limit their workload. The D-backs, meanwhile, might think about an upgrade in the outfield department. Yasmani Tomas is currently out with injury, so Daniel Descalso is filling in for him in left. Maybe a 4th outfielder, possibly a guy to start in the outfield and move one of those other outfielders into the 4th spot. Just provide some more pop for this lineup that really has been slugging the ball all season. I kind of think it would be interesting if they went and doubled down on that strength. And those are the buyers at this point. We sit here at the All-Star break on the 10th with the deadline exactly 3 weeks away from today. And this is where we stand. These are the teams that are going to be making the moves. Next week, I'll get into the teams who might be dealing away some of the guys that they have, some of the assets that could help some of these contending teams. Just more food for thought for you to chew on as we head toward one of the most exciting times of the season, with a lot of roster moves and trades and guys on new teams and rumors flying around and lots of excitement about the future for teams that maybe aren't so good right now, and lots of excitement for teams that are good right now who are trying to build toward a postseason run. Like I said, it's good for all parties, no matter who you root for. So pay attention, because your team might be the next one to make a move. That's going to do it for episode number 15, Home Run Derby tonight, so I don't want to miss any of that. Enjoy all the All-Star Week festivities from the Derby to the Futures game, which hopefully you checked out live on Sunday or at some point on a replay. Obviously, the All-Star game on Tuesday night. Take advantage of those nights off on Wednesday and Thursday before we jump right back in to a full schedule on Friday night. And things begin to heat up as we head toward the trade deadline. Division races continue to take shape. We know who the buyers and sellers are. We're going to go over the sellers next week. Thanks so much for listening this week to episode number 15. Remember to follow us on Twitter at Ducks on the Pod, like the Facebook page. Please rate, review, subscribe, tell everybody you know about the Ducks on the Pod revolution. Hit me up for some stickers. I'll send them your way. And yeah, until next week, remember the 3 keeps of baseball. Keep your glove on the dirt, your bat off your shoulder, and always keep your eye on the ball.
Back, gone.